All right. Hello and welcome to the Mannerists podcast, where we explore the thoughts and works of the old masters. I'm Rashid, and this is Dave. And we will
Hello.
be talking mostly about a little study group that I and another Instagram channel has been running, which Dave has also contributed. And we're going to talk
Mm.
about copying as it relates to that. So I'll just start off by asking Dave. So what are your thoughts about copying as not just as an exercise, but as something to learn from and get these crucial lessons that you would need to basically
Mm.
start growing? What are your experiences with that? You delved into that last week, but I kind of want to
Mm.
know, is there an aspect of copying that really opened the doors for you as it relates to your practice?
Yeah, I think for me the main thing with copying was it showed that I was able to kind of maybe not completely reproduce like a master work,
Yeah.
but get some of the techniques down. So for example, if I just try and copy like a portrait, say by let's just pick anyone, John Singer Sargent,
Yeah.
um, then I can get into kind of the mind of him. And because I have his brush strokes and his colors and everything in front of me, it doesn't seem as difficult rather than just starting with your blank canvas and you're going to pour like paint, say your friend, and you're just
Yeah.
using, it gives
Yeah,
you
it's
that kind of
kind of
real
like training
stepping
wheels
stone
in a
kind
sense,
of,
right?
yeah, training wheels. That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah,
That's
it's
a really good
training
way of
wheels,
putting it.
but it keeps you from falling, but you still have to use the same muscles and the same
Right.
sort of mindset to get
Mm-hmm.
it working.
Mm-hmm. And
So
I
in that
think
sense,
as
yeah, go ahead.
well, it sorry, yeah, I think it also gave me that kind of like initiative to, oh, you can actually do this, and um it wasn't as abstract anymore, really.
Yeah,
And
it's magical,
it
right? Seeing the
magical,
drawing on
yeah.
the paper in front of you, like
Mm-hmm.
the drawing. It's
Mm.
like with the
Right.
strokes that are like it's almost three dimensional because you can see the ink sort of protruding out, whereas with a print, it's
Right.
all lay flat.
Yeah. And also I
Yeah.
think you can kind of, rightly or wrongly, you can bypass some of the learning curves. So say if I was just learning to paint without studying anyone else, I was just doing it purely by myself, it might take me a lot longer to develop the techniques that say might be present in a master artist's painting. Whereas if I just
Yeah,
go, I'm a beginner and I look at this master painter, then I can see those techniques already being put to use. And I
absolutely.
don't. How about you? Do you think that's kind of a good idea to
Yeah,
bypass
and another thing
things
to
or
think of, if you didn't copy, chances are you might not even learn those things at all.
right?
Because as you know, art, almost if
Mm-hmm.
you look at any era, for instance, the era right before the Renaissance, nobody was drawing the way Renaissance was through natural study. And
Yeah.
sometimes if people even went into that direction, the artists of the time would sort of mock and sort of out
Yeah.
them in a sense because they were working in a
Mm.
different sort of way. And you needed
Right.
certain patronage, you need certain support, and if you didn't get it, you would not make it as an artist. And so
Yeah.
you don't quite have the same kind of I can maybe get it without a master. Sometimes you just need the masters to learn things
Right.
from, because otherwise
Mm-hmm.
it might not ever come to you. Yeah,
Mm.
I definitely think you're completely right on those quite you bypass certain things. You don't have to think about certain things, but through copying,
Right.
through working with the training wheels, you actually get an idea of how to ride the bike and how the
Exactly.
motion, you go through the motions and you create something. And actually seeing it on
Right.
the paper is
Mm.
indeed, like you said, a magical experience where you actually see the drawing in front of you, came out of your own
Right.
hand.
And I feel
Yeah.
like you start to then experience like what it is like to produce like a painting, you know, of a certain standard. It
Yeah.
gets you into that mind frame, rather than
Yeah.
kind of like always guessing and like wondering, is this the right way to apply the paint, or you know, should I, you know, start again, or yeah, it's it's an interesting one for sure.
Okay,
'Cause I
then my
think,
second question. Yeah, go ahead.
go on, go for it.
Yeah, my second
Go on,
question would be like, do you think that there can be an order to copying from the masters? Like there can be an order to what you do first and what you do later? Or do you think we should all just start copying like detailed watercolor? Hold on. Did we cut off or could you hear me?
We cut out just for a second. I
Okay.
got like the gist of what you're saying.
Okay, so like, is there
Sorry,
an
audience.
order to things? And you know, do you just start with detailed watercolor copies or like detailed oil paintings and copy those, or do you go, you know, smaller scale and simpler and go to the more advanced? Because we're
Whoa,
gonna go into that topic
yeah,
in a sense
yeah.
immediately
Rashid, that's a
after
hard
this.
hitting question. That's
Yeah.
made me think.
Yeah, that's why we're doing this podcast, baby. Ask
We're
the very
broadening our
hard-hitting
minds.
questions.
Yeah. I don't know. I couldn't give you like a definite like, yes, it's good to kind of follow like an order, but also sometimes like to learn like a new skill, it's good if you are thrown into the deep end, and if you're literally just, you know, if you're trying to like copy someone like, let's say, Da Vinci or something, as a beginner, you're never going to be able to do that because you don't have that like
And you're not
amount of
left-handed.
knowledge.
Are you left-handed?
It's funny you say that. When I draw, it's right-handed, but I do a lot of things with my left hand. So I'm ambidextrous, basically. So I write sometimes with my left. Yeah.
I know that Da Vinci's a really hard master to copy because he uses his left hand. So the motion of the hand is more towards like making strokes like this, because it's how the hand is bent. So like right-handed people, if you actually like copy a right-handed master, it's always this way. So it's easier to like make those really quick strokes that you love making with Albrecht Dürer, for instance. But if you go with a left-handed artist like Titian or Leonardo da Vinci, you start to realize, oh my goodness, I have to go like this instead of like simple, just one muscle and like all muscles.
Right.
It's very
yeah.
I just noticed that with left-handed artists.
No, and I can kind of see why that would be a problem as well, because you know, sometimes if I'm writing and I, you know, like I said, I do that with my left hand, you know, on occasion, it's more like I'm pushing. You push the pen, like rather if it's in the right hand, you just kind of, it's like one gliding motion, and you're like pulling it. So there's a lot more kind of like.
It's very interesting how
force.
the hand you use, it changes the drawing. But okay, so as far as I've understood from your answer, you're saying that while it may not be the most sort of logical step to go with very detailed works, it does sort of surround you with the sort of, surround you almost with the spirit of the artist and the drawing itself. And when you actually can pull it off, it's a very big experience, more sort of like a motivation than an absolute lesson, but it is a lesson nevertheless. That's interesting. And I would agree with you. I love like copying very detailed works, even though I would not probably be able to execute that myself. But it is also important to know that you should, in a sense, study the basics the best you can, where you can study them. I'm not talking about basics in the sense that, a drawing book that, we have in the modern era, but the basics in the sense that you can see them within the master's works, which is why we have the group learning from the masters that we're running on
A little
Studying the
plug.
Masters Instagram page. You just have to write Studying the Masters, and you should see the group. We have a weekend and weekday group. We're going to talk about some of the works we did for the weekday group and what can we sort of learn from not studying like basics in the sense that, art students study it nowadays, but basics in the sense that what we could see from the master's works, how they depicted the basics. So let's start with my copy of Luca Cambiaso. We're going to go through some more people's copies. Most of these drawings are like available to the public, so I don't think anyone will mind. Okay, so share screen and window. I'm still new to the StreamYard thing, but dude. Okay, so all right. So we got this. We're going to start with this. This is Luca Cambiaso. Luca Cambiaso was, he was not a cubist. When I post this on Discords,
Right.
People think, oh, you're posting modern art. You're posting a bunch of modern art. We're all about the classics. And I have to tell these people, this is a Renaissance artist. This guy lived in the 1500s. And, if you look at his paintings and you can look at some of his other drawings, they look like something Parmigianino or Leonardo da Vinci would do rather than Picasso. So why does he sort of, this is a copy I made, this is not his drawing, but why did he draw in this manner? Why did he start exploring these really, oh, I think we lost David there. Just a sec. I think he should come back, and the link doesn't change afterwards. So I'll just simply continue while he is trying to sort it out. So why did he go about drawing in a sort of simplified manner? Just he's saying, I'm cut out. Can you try rejoining? All right, this should only take a few minutes at most. Let's see. Okay, he should be back. So why did he draw in this manner? Because I think I'm not very familiar with his biography, but it is, in a sense, him reaffirming the very basics of form for the Renaissance, the type of art they started creating in the Renaissance. This is later from Raphael and Michelangelo, but not so much. It's almost like Raphael and Michelangelo have created this, with Leonardo, of course, have created this trend of really accurate drawing. And Cambiaso was basically going to the very basics and exploring them as fully as he could within drawing. Because if you look at some drawings by Michelangelo, you look at some drawings by Raphael, you look at some drawings by Parmigianino, and you see that when they started it, when there's a drawing that's only half finished, you can see that this is how they began. Of course, they didn't use thick lines like Cambiaso did. And, I tried imitating it around here with the very foreground figure having very thick outlines. But, let me check if David's back. David's back. Okay, David, you're back. Sorry, I felt like I should go on a bit. Before.
That's no problem. The show must go
Anyhow,
on. As they say.
Yeah, so I'll just summarize what I said. Basically, I said that Cambiaso executed this drawing to sort of explore the basics of drawing that were introduced in the Renaissance through perspective, through forms with Michelangelo and Raphael, and sort of explore them within the context of a finished drawing. Because Michelangelo, Raphael, and Parmigianino, they do draw in this manner when they begin, but it's very slight and you can't see it. It's covered in with the details. They don't put it
Right.
out there for you to see. But Cambiaso does, and that's what makes him so important to copy. And that's why this is such a educational drawing almost. So
right.
yeah,
And
I'm just
it
gonna
kind of gives
go ahead.
the viewer like, it gives like the viewer the like a real kind of understanding of how like even these artists broke down like a composition into behind it, like the structural drawing. So it's
So they
it's cool
broke
to
down
see.
the
It's very cool
composition
to see.
itself. You kind of cut out there for like a few seconds.
Did I cut out?
You mentioned break.
Sorry.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you mentioned like it
so I
broke
basically
down
just mentioned
yeah
the composition and how each artist they draw using shapes a lot of the time, but we wouldn't see that otherwise. Basically what you said, but coming out of my mouth.
Yeah, essentially, he is putting forth that we are actually perceiving these very simple shapes. We're not just thinking of all the details. We're not like gods that can immediately come to their mind exactly how things work. We have to like think about the light, think about how it works, and we have to like draw it kind of fast to get everything right without like sort of breaking the whole, the feeling of the whole. And I'm just gonna go through some of the, this is a copy by Betty Bendelson. She's great. I'm gonna talk about some of her copies at the end,
so supportive.
last section. Yeah.
And it's a really nice person.
She is very supportive. She's one of the few people
right?
that comment on these videos. And we just started making them last like 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Betty, if you're watching this.
Yeah, shout out Betty.
So
keep doing you. Keep doing you.
So this is Drawing Ram. He is I think his line work is just excellent. Like, look at this. Look at how parallel and perfect they are. And it actually like follows the, outlines quite well as well. The outlines are just as lively as the sort of the shading, which is hard to do. And I think he does it quite well. I think he started out with this figure and then thought, I should just do the whole thing. Because in the other copies, that figure is at the back, and in his, it's at the front. But every other figure is completely proportional. So I think it's very great. Like you can see that
that's really
there's
nice
a separation. There's a separation of the torso here, and the shading is done quite well. There are darker spots, and it's all very animated. It's more animated than the other copies that me and Betty did. So yeah, we are all sort of started exploring these shapes, and we, hopefully we all started seeing other master drawings and other drawings that we do in terms of shapes when we begin it, and which will actually take us to the second order of copies that we made. This is another Cambiaso. Cambiaso didn't make all of his drawings this way. This was a sort of outlier. Usually when he's breaking down the shapes, he does go into a bit of a detail. You can see it here in this other copy that I made. There are still like the face is still a flat face, but there are more curves. He actually like goes into some of the anatomy, with the rib cage and such, and he tries to really actually understand the forms, but also simplify them enough that the person perceiving the drawing can immediately recognize them. And if you look at Cambiaso, go ahead.
While you're doing this, Rashid, like, did you find the perspective difficult, or was it okay?
So it's very interesting.
Amount of figures there.
It's interesting, the perspective in this picture. It's not like academic perspective. It's not perfect in a sense.
Right.
It is kind of strange how, for instance, it is kind of strange how this is sort of going into the, the background. And this is just a sketch. We shouldn't pine on Cambiaso for doing it this way. But like there's a horizon line here that's sort of curved, and then it's sort of going towards here somehow, even though horizon lines don't quite work that way. I might have screwed up with the copy. I didn't see the original lately, so I'm not sure. But I think it was available in the copy as well. And
right.
So sheer amount of figures.
I think like
I just had to remember
it looks really
how
well
the figures
done.
looked. Oh, thanks. But I sort of thought what this figure is compared to that figure from right next to it, and that figure from like a little way off. It's very simplistic.
Use that as a gauge, like
and it also helps that the only thing you have to draw for the figure to be there is like a circle, another little piece, and then 3 lines, and then the figure is there. So like it helps that you can put it down very quickly, and that's what it matters when you go like, I'm gonna make a big composition. You have to put it down quickly, or else you can't like get it right quite so. And it helps like when you're copying this, you have to put it down quickly. That helps. So we're gonna go into Betty's copy because we're going off time again. But I think the last section is gonna be short enough that we can make it in 45 minutes. So this is Drawing Ram sort of doing this figure. And he's got this whole he's got the central figure quite well. He's got,
I like that.
It's also very animated as well, just like his other works. And this is Betty. She's got the figures all lined up as well. I think this was actually the way the horizon line is so wonky. I think it was from the actual piece, since it's in her copy as well.
It must be.
Yeah. So she's got the relations of the figures as well. This is a thing that I'm going to go into with Betty's copies. She puts details when there are none because it's just the way she draws. And we're actually going to go into that at the very end. But it's important
you mean kind of like smaller details, or
or smaller
she just
details,
add like an element.
And she just sort of changes certain things if it makes it more clear to the drawing and clear to her own style. But we're going to go into that as it relates to copying. But this is the way she copies usually when I see her. Hold on, I think this sort of this wasn't supposed to be there. It's unrelated. So then after we did those drawings of Cambiaso, and these copies, we're actually doing them from the book Drawing Lessons from the Great Masters by Robert Beverly Hale. And if you want to join us, you can join it through what I've just said at the beginning with you studying the masters and learning from the masters Instagram channels. So then we went into Poussin. We're going through these master works where we can actually perceive the basics. And we go into Poussin, and from the Poussin, you actually see that, it's even further than the geometrical sort of composition of Cambiaso. This is almost pure forms, There are no faces. There are no, personality to, the lines. Everything, it's there as if it's from life, but it's all forms. It's all, almost stone.
Yeah, it's like leaving out those minor details, but you don't even need them details necessarily.
It's almost like you perceive the composition as a composition first, as you just said, you don't see the details, so that you can sort of delve into those details later. They usually say Poussin was a bad artist, not bad drawer, sort of draftsman. He was a great painter, but he couldn't draw, because when you look at his drawings, they're almost like a few strokes mean a person. But, they don't understand that those few strokes are the crucial parts of what makes that composition happen.
Right. And that's such a skill in itself.
Exactly.
Yeah, because, for me, I'd be more likely to spend, an hour trying to perfect, a figure drawing rather than just trying, a 2-minute quick sketch. And I find I really struggle with the, putting down that 2 minutes just on paper. And it's very difficult to like get the essence of
Yeah,
the
exactly.
figure and even the flow of it. So
Well,
there's
now you
like
know who to
tremendous
copy
skill.
to like get that
Yeah,
knowledge.
there you go. I'm
Cambiaso
taking
and
notes.
Toussaint. Yeah.
I'm taking notes.
As it is with training wheels, you get to actually like experience how fast drawing works, even though you can't really do it. And I can't really do it at this moment, but I'm getting an idea of how it's done through copying.
Sorry, just cut out for a minute. I'm back.
Oh, like I just said, we're getting an idea of how to do it, even though we can't do it in our own works yet. And this is what makes everything,
Right.
this copying business, even if you're copying sketches, so important. So this is my copy of it. I stuck mostly to the lines
Yeah, that's
themselves. Not much has changed. This is Betty's copy. She has taken her own sort of perspective on it as usual, and she has depicted. She did a very good job with the washes. They are very. You can differentiate between this wash and this wash and this wash because they're both
awesome,
painted differently and they're in different tones.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's in the original. Yeah, you can hardly differentiate between the washes in the original. She actually accentuated it according to her own sensibility, which is very interesting. This is drawing gram again. This
Nice.
is more
He's really, like,
sketchy, but
simplified.
he really put it down very quickly, and you can actually perceive the figures. And yeah, he also put his own sort of spin on it, and it's very interesting. I'm trying to go through them faster now, and in the future, I'm probably going to go through pictures faster. But this is Don Quixote by Daumier, and in this drawing, it's more. It's still simplified. It's still simplified like crazy, but he takes a more symbolic approach almost to the simplifications. You can still perceive after like seeing all those planes, you can still perceive how the shadows are put, but you also get to perceive the motion of the figures through these sort of subtle line work that he does. And it is actually a big drawing. It's not a small drawing, but it's still he's using very broad brushes, and he's using a sort of like an unsharpened pencil.
Yeah. Quick question: how big is that drawing? Like the original?
I believe it's around like 12 inches, which is 30 centimeters. I think it's length. So it's like an A4
like
paper.
Ruler. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is my 5 minute. 5.
Yeah, it's very good. You got the as we said, like from the planes, you can tell where the shadows are. You can tell where the shadows are, and you get to feel like the motion. And if you if you want that in your own drawing, it's very different.
Yeah, like trying to get it down quickly as well. Like I kind of realized, like I was after making like I think it's a horse or a donkey. I'm not really fully sure. Like his ass is too big. You know what I mean? And you only notice that like after you've drawn it.
Yeah, like you notice things you never would notice just from seeing something. That's also another.
Right.
Yeah.
So I suppose
you're a wizard for being able to do this with a gel pen. I can never use those things. They're way too inconvenient for me.
Yeah, I'll convert you someday. I'll get you on the gel pen hype. Trust me.
Yeah, and I draw with a feather, guys.
Yeah, I need to start doing that. Yeah, you're old school.
Yeah, I'll give you some tutorials. All right. This is Bendelson, and she has, as usual, she made the figures way more detailed. The figures are way more discernible now. She still kept the symbolic volumes of the figures, but she also added these really nice ink lines. And I think she has an artist that she really likes that creates a sort of atmosphere by mixing ink lines with washes in a way that sort of the lines sort of exhume from the drawing itself. I think it's really nice the way she interpreted it. You can still tell the motion of the horses. The legs are done very nicely. The shadows are done quite well, and she added some more shadows here to like give it more details, which is very well done. And this is drawing ram. And I love this because in the original book that these are from, the artist says that you should have sort of geometrical. You can try doing the Cambiaso drawing with this Daumier drawing, meaning you can sort of do it blocky. And you can actually see that done with some of drawing Graham's drawing here. It's very interesting. I know he has the book. He has said so in his the comment section. But yeah, it's interesting how he chose to interpret it with a more sort of simplified and in a sense blocky manner than the rest of us, which sort of tried to get the drawing in. But it's all very well done. It's very animated. You can see the motion of the figures, donkey and the horse.
And I think it's
this is the next one we're doing.
Green pen.
The green pen is great. I don't know.
Green pen is great.
I never drew with a green pen. I have drawn with red. I have drawn with blue. I've never drawn with green.
Right. Green is quite a rare one to use.
Yeah.
But this is Da Vinci.
So this is the next one. Yeah, this is the next one we're doing. This is basically to learn that, you just sort of sketch. You need to sketch. You can't learn to draw without sketching all the time. And this is sort of what Da Vinci did. Like he put some details here. He had he tried understanding the face here, and he didn't care that he was, completely ruining this lady's face. And then, he has these very simplified figures here, and you're sort of getting the motion there. And what is he doing here? I'm not sure. But, he's drawing. He just thinks, this is my playground. I can draw like a very detailed old man.
Yeah, it's like, it's a baby, right? Baby, and it's just like half
a young
his arm
man,
is cut
it's
off.
an old man, it's a baby. Yeah, I can zoom in even more. Like this is an old guy, this is a young guy, and this is like a baby.
That's funny. You know that the old guy there, that profile, he's drawn like, I've seen countless number of times that I've seen him draw that same kind of type of profile.
Yeah.
So that he must have like used like one model for that and just like ran with it and kept replicating it.
I know that one of Leonardo's studio practices involved drawing the same drawing over and over again to memorize it. We'll talk about that later when we're talking about techniques. But yeah, it's very interesting. So basically, from copying this, you're gonna learn that you can do whatever you want with the paper, and you should never like be afraid to put down a stroke. You should never think that I need to draw perfectly in order to draw. You can draw whatever, and you need to draw in order to learn. So we have talked about all the benefits of copying. Now we went into said we can learn the masters, we can get the feel of their drawings, we can master it ourselves, we can become masters ourselves. Now let's talk about the shortcomings of copying, which some artists have said that you hear this a lot. Like if you're trying to learn something from studying someone, and let me turn this down now. Remove. All right, we're back, and okay, now we talk until the next section, which we're gonna go into with more pictures. But so you get this idea that some people say, oh, but if you copy, then you're just an imitator. You're sort of how they say like, oh, this is the Bollywood remake of this Hollywood movie, and you immediately go like, why don't I just watch the Hollywood movie instead of seeing the remake? And if Bollywood wants to make a good movie, they can always make an original movie, and they do. But nobody in like Hollywood, nobody's watching like Avengers and they go into like the Indian version of the Avengers. I'm not sure if there is. I know there are some Bollywood remakes of certain movies that are actually very good because they take an original take.
Prominent.
They take an original take on the story, but like when they're doing just the story itself, they're usually always seen as inferior. And you get this with people, especially like in our age where modern art is quite a big phenomenon almost. They say like, I already see these. I see the best works by Michelangelo. I see Raphael. Why would you like try to be a knockoff of those guys? And is there any point in doing so? And that's the modern sort of.
The modern kind of viewpoint.
Debate against the modern viewpoint, but you also see a viewpoint that's close to that with like pre-moderns almost. You see that in the Impressionists that they were quite sort of almost at odds with each other when it comes to like copying. For instance, Degas would say like, oh, you need to copy to learn. In fact, you shouldn't draw anything from like nature. You shouldn't draw anybody. You shouldn't draw anything. You should first just copy for years and years. And once you can copy it perfectly, then you can draw like a bottle for a beginning.
That's quite extreme, I think, that approach.
Yeah,
for sure.
So,
or you can draw another pencil.
Yeah, that was Degas' idea. Gauguin and Renoir were even more like they were more extremist towards the other direction. Renoir would say like, you can look at master, you can look and like enjoy their works, but you cannot copy them because that will break your originality. You should only copy nature. You should see the works, but you should surround yourself with nature and try to depict that in your works, which is complete, hypocrisy. If you look at Renoir's biography, which is, he went to the academy, he made countless copies, which we have, and he made copies even after he, wrote down those exact words. There are copies from him later on in his life. It's not like he stopped copying. Maybe he was trying to look cool for the people that were supposed to read it, because he was trying to write this pamphlet for this magazine.
He wanted to be like completely original or something.
Oh yeah.
When in reality, not many artists would be quote unquote like completely original, because they've all learned from somewhere or someone.
Yeah, and Gauguin also had that idea where he was talking about in his notebooks, like, and in his letters, he would say like, never copy, because if you copy, then you sort of corrupt your sense of color. You try to like, and he had an actual explanation for this. It wasn't just, like Renoir. Renoir's explanation was, you cannot be that artist to begin with. They done it. You can't be like them. And Gauguin's idea was that if you take in from other artists, like imagine, this is Gauguin's logic. Imagine you take Rubens's color. Rubens, I don't know if you've seen many, it's very colorful.
Yeah,
he made like whole new theories of color where it would just, burgeon off from the picture. But if he says, if you take Rubens's color and put it into Raphael, it will look ridiculous. Like he says, the Raphael is built for the colors that it has. So if you copy another person's paintings, then you're eventually taking those qualities that are not matching your own vision. But Gauguin was also against like copying nature. He would say like, oh, you should copy from your memory. You should never copy directly from what you see. So he was sort of, he didn't do either of those things, by the way. He copied people and he copied directly from nature. But these artists love writing things they don't do for some reason.
Right. But like to commit something to your memory, you have to kind of copy from nature first, right? In order to have that as a memory. So it's very, it's very kind of hypocritical.
You have artists, definitely, like you have artists that have they go on walks, they perceive stuff, but then they come to their studio to draw. But most of the time in the Renaissance and in the Baroque, people just went out to sketch, and they would actually put the colors in their studio. They didn't go out to like paint until like the Impressionists, basically. Yeah, plein air.
Right.
Because you just had dust as your color, and you have to like mix it with oil.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that outside.
Right. And that would
Yeah.
take
Anyway.
so long in preparation. Yeah.
Definitely. So those were the
Difficult time.
ideas.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're quickly going into the last section. I'll just quickly ask what are your thoughts on these sort of these? I can't find a word. What you would call someone
Okay.
disagreeing with something? You know, this disagreements. Let's say with the idea of copying.
Oh,
That
like
we were talking about.
the negative sides to copying.
Yeah.
I suppose like what I kind of briefly talked to you about before was if you copy someone so much that you just become like another version of that artist. So say if you just copy like week in, week out, and you're never doing anything, like no original pieces, then I think that's a big pitfall. Like for me personally, what I would do is,
go ahead.
Yeah, I'd normally try and find like an artist I like. I might copy them, basically do a master copy of it, and then I'll try to apply what I've learned from doing that master copy into my own sketch or finished piece or something. Because then it takes what you've learned, and then it forces your like brain to sort through all that information while you're doing your original. And it works for me. Do you do the same, or do you do different?
So it's interesting that you mentioned that. So like you mentioned that you have to balance it between doing your own work and you have to balance the copies.
Right.
It's interesting that you didn't mention anything about the copying process itself, which is something. So you asked me if I do that in my own works. Honestly, like I started drawing again after not drawing for a year almost. Like I just did sketches for a year from time to time, but I started drawing again only lately. And I did some original works. I didn't like I think I did post a few of them, but yeah, I did do some original works with watercolors and such. But mostly I've been doing copying, and I thought like, is there something maybe to what Degas said, and is there something to the copying process itself? So I started sort of going through these journals of the French artist Eugène Delacroix, which I have, and they're very long, but I did find a few passages that are interesting as it relates to this exact topic, and which was Delacroix sort of talking about copying. So Delacroix in his journal says that copying is basically crucial. Like you need to do it, or else you won't be able to learn how to draw. Like you won't be able to learn to draw like from nature itself only. You're not one of the first men, in a sense. So copying is absolutely crucial, he says. But he says that you should never copy like in a sort of religious, very strict manner, he says. Because, he says, this is important.
Okay.
If you copy very strictly every single thing that's in a picture and you revere it beyond doubt, then you'll copy the worst stuff about the picture too. And you will sort of revere the worst aspects of the picture as well as the best aspects of the picture. So he says that you should never copy exactly, and you should never copy everything that you see, like even if you don't quite understand it.
Very
even if
interesting.
You should even if you don't understand it, or like it doesn't ring true to you in your own practice, he says. So you should actually never copy religiously like that, because you're in the danger of learning the bad things, the danger of learning more ignorant stuff as it relates to that picture. Like for instance,
and maybe
I
that
sometimes
person they're copying, maybe the person like they're copying hasn't actually mastered one of the elements of like the painting himself, and then if you're copying that, you're just building up.
We just went through like how Luca Cambiaso's horizon lines were quite weird, for instance. Maybe he just didn't care. Although I would like think that a strict adherence to perspective is not the most important part of a picture. But still,
Right.
you do have this danger of copying stuff that it's not appealing to you, but you think like, this is a master, I have to get everything in it.
Right.
So that's interesting. So and
I think.
Delacroix in his journals gives examples of people who copied right, who copied well, because he says like copying, everybody did it. Like Raphael was a very prolific copier. David was a very prolific copier. Jacques Louis David, the guy who painted Napoleon so many times in his lifetime. And as a good copyist, he gives the example of David. He says that, so in the historical context, David came about when like very fluffy painting was in vogue. Everything was fluffy. Women's buttocks were, right on the screen. It's very sexualized, but also very soft. Every every figure in the painting has soft skin. Every woman have their buttocks out, their breasts out. Like, it's very fluff pieces almost. Sort of like drawn porn almost.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So
Early porn, like.
yeah, it's very crazy. If you look at Francois Boucher, even though I know some people in the masters community love it, and his drawings are in the learning from the great masters book, his paintings are pretty much erotic in the sense, and they are erotic for no particular reason other than the king loves seeing those paintings. The king who is commissioning them. It was the same king who got his head chopped off. So, in the French Revolution.
Yeah.
So David came about at a time when his, the painting stuff that he likes, which is neoclassical, he brought neoclassicism, a next generation of classicism. If you look at his paintings, like Death of Socrates, where Socrates is going like this. Do you know that painting?
I actually don't, but I can, while you're talking, I'm going to Google it. So
I think like you must have seen his Napoleon paintings though. Like they either like
I have
usually or like
like I think there's a few of his paintings, I think, in Dublin, in Ireland, like the capital city. So yeah, I know his style, but okay. Gotcha. Very kind of bright colors. This one is...
Yeah, the forms are very austere though, right?
Yeah.
They're very solid almost.
They are.
Yeah, the painting that he liked,
it's like
this sort of new... Yeah, go ahead.
It's like the figures themselves are just like popping out of the painting.
Exactly. This sort of... this austere manner that he liked to paint was exactly the opposite of what he was doing. So in a sense, and he got this painting from studying the masters. David copied so much. Like his drawing oeuvre is full of copies, and he got his style by copying so much. And but Delacroix says what David did was he was a good painter. Delacroix doesn't like neoclassicism, but he does think that David did the right thing with going in this manner, because he thought, his sort of rigid insistence that he was going to do neoclassical painting when what was in vogue was basically fluff porn was a sign that he was actually willing to take the steps. And he was kind of almost naive in its approach, because you have to be kind of naive to go against the curve. And sorry, did we cut off? I think we cut off for a second.
You just cut out for a minute. Yeah.
Okay, so I just said that it's sort of more pure and naive of David to do this when it was against what was in vogue at the time. So, which leads me to
good as well. Like he's going against the grain. He was going for like the type of painting that he wanted, and he wasn't.
Yeah, but with a naive love of classics. So
Right.
what he actually shows
I
as a
think.
bad artist whose copies, and this is his opinion,
Mm,
Angra
okay.
fans or Angra fans, wherever you're from. I think they call him Angra
Oh
in
yeah.
England. Angra fans, like, don't get offended, but he says that Angra is actually is a bad example because he says, so Angra was obsessed with Raphael. He has Raphael
Okay.
with Fornarina, and like he has like two paintings based on Raphael's life. Considering this guy takes like 2 years to paint pictures, these are big. Like
Mm,
this shows like his obsession with Raphael. But he says that
right.
because not only Angra was painting Raphael kind of paintings when that was in vogue because of David. He was a pupil of David,
Mm,
actually, Angra. He was also painting these pictures by trying to copy, the sort of naive grace that Raphael has in his paintings. Which Raphael, in Delacroix's words, Raphael was not aware that his paintings had this incredible grace in them because nobody had ever done something like that before. But since
right.
Angra is
Right.
actually aware of it and Angra is clinging to it and trying to like really bring it forth, it stands as fake, he says. It's the way he copies
Oh.
Raphael seems fake, according to
Mm.
Delacroix.
So he's kind of saying it's not authentic. It's him
Yeah,
just trying to be another Raphael
yeah, in a
while
sense.
leaving
While
like
David
no
is,
imprint, none of his
yeah,
own
while
imprint
David
on the
is
like
more naive in
painting.
his own,
Mm,
approach, and he is more. I don't know. Maybe it's because David goes from love, in a sense, in a more pure sense,
okay.
because he's going against the
Mm,
grain, whereas Angers is not. Because that's, just that it's his Delacroix's idea. As we established,
okay.
Delacroix thinks that you should copy without
Mm.
like absolute reverence. You should copy with the intention to learn. And does that make sense to you so far? Because
It
we're going to go into the
does. It does.
yeah, and like let's
Yeah.
have your thoughts on
I,
it before I finish it off with another quote by Delacroix, and we sort of
yeah.
ruminate on that until next week, I guess.
I mean, like it seems like he has good points and he knows more on the subject than me. But I think a good if you copy the right elements of like a painting, then I don't see what the problem is. You know what I mean? Like maybe
Yeah,
if you don't copy the whole thing, like character by
exactly.
character, or all the foreground, whatever, or the background, there should be some elements to that painting where you should try and leave your own imprint on it.
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
But that's interesting. I need to kind of research that more and even try and read like his full opinion on it.
I can send you the pages later. I don't
If
think you should
yeah,
go
if you
through the
wouldn't
entire
mind.
journal because it's kind of boring. But yeah, and we can talk about it more next week. But that's the sort of idea. So I'm just gonna show some pictures now, and then I end it with something who someone said who is a Delacroix fan, which I think
Hmm.
explains what Delacroix meant when you should copy pictures without having absolute reverence towards them. So
Okay.
I'm gonna share another window that I've opened beforehand, and just a sec.
Go for
Remove.
it.
Hold on.
No
I'm just
worries.
gonna get the stop screen. Share screen again. Window, and there. So this is Raphael copying Michelangelo. He's copying the sculpture David from the back, and
Cool. Raphael.
when you first see this, you think, oh, he's copying a model, and some art historians actually say, oh, he just got the model to stand in the same way David did, and I don't think he did that.
Right.
I don't think he did that. I think he did the David. He just drew him as if he was alive.
Mm.
And you can actually see it from like the muscle structure, but he still kept like the original stone piece. So I think he actually did draw the David here, and this is how
Uh,
Raphael copied other masters. And so I'm just going to go. This is Delacroix's copy, and sort of
Okay.
he's copying Raphael here, and Raphael actually makes use of straight lines and also curved lines alongside each other. But if you look at Delacroix's copy, it's all curved lines. Like there are
Just
almost no
curves.
straight lines here. And yeah, that's interesting. He is sort of giving his own idea of how the Raphael drawing should be, while also sticking quite close to the original. It still looks kind of like Raphael
Yeah, I mean,
more than
I actually know
Delacroix.
that drawing as well, and I can tell
Yeah.
like the proportions uh, and like the gestures, like basically the exact same. It seems to
So
me.
yeah,
So
this is
yeah,
Rubens.
it's just like his line work that's different.
So actually, Delacroix says Rubens is
Michelangelo.
more Rubens when he's copying other masters. In a sense, he can actually assert himself so well in his copies that it looks more like his own paintings. This is Rubens copying Michelangelo. This is Rubens copying Michelangelo again.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they look like Rubens painting. So I'm just gonna.
They
This
really
is
do, because the dashes of red are like characteristic of Rubens.
yeah.
Like,
So
for sure, like
this, yeah, definitely, his paintings can be red all over, even in the shadows.
yeah,
So this is a copy
yeah.
I made. This is a copy I made. And in the original, I quite love the original, by the way. This is a copy I made of Parmigianino. And I quite love the original. I love the way the folds are made. I love the free lines. I didn't know how to depict this angel. So I depicted it exactly as it would be in the drawing, which, Parmigianino didn't really care much about how to depict the angel. He just thought, oh, I'll just fix it up later in another drawing. He does have a bunch of like drawings of small subject within a drawing where he's exploring to a further degree. So I did that. I almost, said, it's Parmigianino. If Parmigianino drew it this way, it must be the correct way to draw the angel. Whereas Betty did the copy, and she actually depicted the angel standing in her hand exactly as it would be in a sculpture. She went further than just, Parmigianino's very sketchy lines that I drew. And I think this
She's
is a good
actually
example of,
elaborated on it.
And this is a good example of what Delacroix was talking about. And I just mentioned what Delacroix said, but you're going into this thinking, what exactly does it mean? What exactly does it mean to copy something without copying all the bad stuff? So I actually came upon a quote from Cézanne, who was a big fan of Eugène Delacroix. He copied his works. He made a painting that was a tribute to Delacroix, where Delacroix is sort of spreading out into the sky with like angels. It's a very interesting painting. And Cézanne was also a very prolific copier. He copied all the time. He copied at Lou. He copied from his photos that he had.
I'm sorry,
so
Rashid, did you say Cézanne earlier like was one of the guys who's like against copying?
Oh, no. I mentioned Renoir and Gauguin. Yeah. Cézanne was not mentioned.
I thought you
until
put
this
in
point.
Cézanne with them. Okay.
Yeah, no.
I was going to say, like, that would be so hypocritical.
Yeah, so
sorry,
Cézanne copied all the time, told other people to copy. He said Lou was a very important book to study. But his main point was that Cézanne, in one of his letters, and this is very important, he says that, okay, you should copy from the masters. This is crucial, he says. You have to do it. But when you're copying from the masters, don't just copy them as strokes or just drawing on paper. Copy from the masters as if you are copying from nature. That's his sort of lesson on copying. He says, copy from the masters as if it's a model in front of you. Or if it's the scenery in front of you. Copy it in that context, because it is that context. It's your eyes that you're copying from. So essentially, that's his idea of copying. And you should copy from the masters as if you're copying from nature. And I think this kind of this summarizes what Eugène Delacroix was talking about when he was talking about the dangers of copying. If you copy just from seeing the strokes, seeing the lines, you're essentially just copying that. You're mostly just copying the lines. and that has a potential to corrupt your thinking. So in that sense, what Betty was doing was more in league with what Delacroix and Cezanne was talking about than what I did with that copy, which was copied exactly. So this is a good thing to like keep in mind and ruminate on as we're going through this journey of exploring artists through copies. It should never be just the line work or just the he got it right, he's the master. I should not put my own sort of like ideas or like thoughts on how it should be better. What we're seeing here with the master works is essentially what we're using to learn to draw ourselves. It's our team that goes first.
Right.
We should never revere the other team so much that we succumb to everything that they have to offer. We should always keep our eyes open.
Agreed. You should always kind of challenge, I think. If there's a part of the drawing that you think this artist mightn't have nailed, then try and do better yourself. Definitely. I think you should always be hungry to try and like improve or just kind of leave your own mark on that study or that master copy.
Yeah, and you should never forget that you're copying to start your own team. You're not copying to join another team. You're starting your own. I think that's a quote by Raphael Emerson. I probably butchered it, but quote. Yeah, you're starting your own team.
No. You've kind of you've explained that well, I think. You should always be rooting for yourself, and I think like most artists, they want to create their own quote unquote brand of art. So, if you're just a copyist, you'll just never be your own original brand. Yeah.
Exactly. So from this point on, let's actually put these philosophies into practice and see what we come up with. I love the learning from the masters group because it allows us to learn through the copies and learn through the drawings. But when you're trying to learn through the philosophy, I think this podcast is very useful for that. So let's use it for this manner and let's see what we come up with in the future. Let's put this into our practice, just like we're putting learning from the masters drawings into our practice. Well, that's all I have. Do you have anything to add, David, until we end this episode? And he cut off just as we were ending. This is fun. Just let's wait a bit. I think it's coming right.
Hello?
Hey, I can hear you, but I can't see you. Okay, I can see you now. Cool. I wish your phone would have waited a minute before we went off. We were just about to end it. So yeah, if you have anything to add, we will just put this in our practice, and we'll see next week as we're putting more and more philosophies into use. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I know it's kind of. You can't hear me. Oh,
maybe
that's amazing.
You can hear me, but I can't hear you.
Okay, so just let me just write to you. Out loud.
My final thoughts. So I think the copying is essential for drawing in particular. It's a great way to build up your skills, and it also gives you that like encouragement to just continue and progress with whether it be drawing, painting, whatever you're looking for. But I think it's definitely a good start, and anyone who says copying is cheating in regards to art, they're lying.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right,
Thank
we'll
you.
see you next week, hopefully, and Thursday. And this has been the Mannerists podcast. Have a great week.